Hey, good morning. This is Brittany Jennings with the Seniors Blue Book, and this morning I am live with Patrick Bismuth of Lily's Promise. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. And so you're working from your home office this morning.
I am. That's been the way for the last 5 or 6 weeks.
I know I'm going on, this is going to be my seventh week being here and being home, and I'm grateful and feeling safe, but man, I'm ready to get out there on the road again and give some
Right.
hugs. So
I can hear you there.
So let's talk a little bit about the story behind Lily's Promise. I know I love hearing it, and so if you can share that with our audience, that would be awesome.
Sure. I first got involved in senior living in 2009 when I was hired to manage a property in Columbus, Ohio, a larger property, a 200 unit property. Um, and there was a gentleman who approached me suggesting that I come see his service, which was a residential care home service specializing in Alzheimer's. And that's when I first saw the concept. And I admit that when he first approached me with this idea that he would be housing a small number of residents into a residential home, it seemed inappropriate or hokey to me. And when I actually saw it, I immediately noticed that this was the right setting for certain people. So when I was done with that project in 2014, I started Lily's Promise. And the way that I got the name Lily's Promise is Lily was named after my mother, Lillian, who spent her life worrying about everybody else but herself in a very giving and caring way. And I wanted to use that same type of mentality in my corporate structure. And then the word promise, meaning the promise of a new beginning, and also our promise, meaning the employees to our residents. And if you look at any of our marketing material, we have 5 promises that we strive to maintain and to keep to all our residents.
Awesome. Well, I know there's two locations. Can you tell us a little bit about where those are actually located?
Sure. So we have one location that's in Sarasota. That's Bee Ridge. That's the one that's behind you, right? The Bee Ridge, just east of the 75, about 5 minutes off of the 75 Bee Ridge exit. And then we have another property that's off of Route 64. And that, again, is about 5 minutes east of the 75. And, both properties operate in exactly the same way with the same services. The one on Route 64 is a little bit newer. It was bought in 2015, whereas the one behind you is a little bit older. But the services are the same. We operate the same way. We have up to 3 staff for 6 residents living in the home. The home that's behind you has one shared room, which is the master. The home in off of Route 64 in Bradenton has 6 private rooms, so that's the only difference between the two houses. We charge a little bit less for a shared room, just because most of our offering is through the services. Very little time is actually spent by the resident in their rooms, and that's a concept that eludes a lot of the family members. Is that because we are at that smaller setting, the residents will spend 75 or 80% of their time in the common areas doing activities, having lunch, dinner. We have activities, performers that come to the house, guitarists and singers and so on. So a lot of the time is spent in the common areas, and that really makes a difference.
So with the environment itself, of course, that's kind of, we understand that it's a residential home, so it's naturally different than a larger community. But talk about the uniqueness of the services that you do offer, and specifically the type of resident that you would have living in your residential homes.
Sure. So we operate, and it's important to highlight that we operate under the same guidance and oversight by ACA, which is the Agency for Healthcare Administration, that any other property some of the larger properties would. So we have the second tier of licensing. There's 3 tiers of licensing in Florida. So we have the second one, which is only allowed when you have 7-day-a-week nursing, which we do. Now, our services also, like I said before, we have 3 caregivers for 6 residents during the busiest hours of the day, and that's a ratio of 2 to 1, which is very hard to find in larger properties. In fact, it's never found.
Right.
The nurse is an LPN, and there's a nurse at each house, and she's there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Then we have an experienced caregiver who's also there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then we have a third caregiver that focuses specifically on activities coming in between 11 and 4. And on top of activities, help with lunches, help with showers during the busiest hours of the day. So that's how we get that ratio of 2 to 1. And as far as which residents are most appropriate, we tend to focus on Alzheimer's because that is a segment of the industry that I feel is underserved in the larger properties. What I've found in my experience with Alzheimer's is that the right level of attention in a surrounding that's stress-free, that's low in outside influences that can create nervousness amongst the residents. I found that is very effective in controlling what they call sundowners, which is the nervousness that an Alzheimer's person would get in the afternoon because of the anxiousness of not being able to accomplish what they usually accomplish, and also the anxiousness of spending a lot of time alone in their room. And that's really not the appropriate way to, in my opinion, to deal with somebody with Alzheimer's. They really need to be engaged. They need to be around like peers in a communal setting, and they need to be able to see the same faces and being able to relate to those caregivers. And that's another advantage that we have, where my staff has been with me for a long time. There's very little turnover, and so the residents benefit from seeing the same faces on a daily basis.
So with everything going on right now with COVID-19, I mean, has that changed anything within how your residents throughout their day, their normal routine, or what does that kind of look like?
Well, we've implemented the same guidance from ACA that they've required, which is to limit outside visits, to take the temperature of every individual who's entering the house. We also have all the staff wearing masks all day because they're the ones who come in and out. But, we have a smaller group, and so with the smaller group, we're able to maintain more or less the same operation. And in fact, at the house behind you, we do have 4 residents right now instead of 6 because we lost 2 residents due to natural causes, the progression of their diseases. So right now we only have 4, so we keep them socially distanced, whether it's around the dining table doing activities or in the living room. But we're lucky in that we don't have a large group to deal with, so the idea of having to keep them in their rooms all day is not something that we have to do. And we've been doing that for 5 weeks, and knock on wood, everything is still status quo, and everybody's healthy.
Absolutely. And I want to just mention from personal experience working with you, and in my previous life, I had a few of my clients that moved into your homes, and their families were so happy, and their lives changed dramatically, their quality of life for their loved ones. So I want to mention prevention of falls. So because of the size and because of what you can put in place within the houses, can you kind of talk about how you're able to really help manage? And we can't 100% maybe prevent falls, but you can really put some things in place for safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good that you mentioned that, because we do specialize in fall risks, in behavioral issues. Those are the types of residents that we do best with. As far as avoiding falls, The first thing is our smaller footprint, which allows us to have eyes on the residents pretty much all the time. But we do use technology as well to avoid falls, especially at night, where with Alzheimer's, they might forget that they can't walk. And so, they may have to go to the bathroom. They get up in the middle of the night thinking they can walk like usual. And those are very violent falls. So we use a combination of motion sensors and pressure mats that will notify the one caregiver that's there at night. And that caregiver is able to go into the room, in the span of 5 or 10 seconds and tend to the resident. You won't see that used very often in the larger properties because the response time would be too long. And in fact, if a person did get up, and even if they set off a motion sensor or a pressure mat, if it takes you more than 30 or 45 seconds to get to the room, it's probably too late. So
Right.
That's one of the things where we do well. And then, as I mentioned before, the behavioral issues, we've seen all sorts of behaviors. We've been at it for a while. And the calming environment with the smaller number of light peers and with I'm not going to say excessive, but with the necessary amount, we get a lot of attention. We found that those behaviors will subside and even go away, whether it's trying to get out or being stressed. I mean, we see a lot of things like one particular resident would tell me every day, I need to go to my house, my roof is being changed. And so they go back in a period in time and they think that they're 20, 30, 40 years younger. And that's what they call sundowning. So we see a lot less of that, much more at peace. And, the whole idea is to give them a comfortable, appropriate setting for them to finish their hopefully years in a calm state.
And I always recommend when families are looking into what is the right environment for their loved one, to make sure that they do go look at, places like yours, like Lily's Promise, because of the, like you said, the calm environment, the staffing ratio. You don't find that in communities. And I love assisted living communities. There's a place for everybody, just depending on what their needs are, their social disposition, whatever it might be that their needs are. But I highly encourage families to come see Lily's Promise. I can think back to several clients I sent your way just thinking, you know what, this might be the safest place. And number one, you have to be safe. So I think your services are so unique that you offer within your two homes.
We're really happy with the offering we have now, and it wasn't always that way. There was, starting with the idea of that gentleman who approached me in Columbus, I tweaked it and I changed it over the years. I have a background in business administration, so I use my experience to offer the best service that I could in an autonomous fashion, so each house is able to operate in their own way, which will allow me to expand in the future as demand requires it. Also, one of the things that we do that we added was scratch cooking. We source all our food from either Detweiler's or Trader Joe's. Dry goods are from Trader Joe's, which I found are very good, high quality dry goods. And those are just a few of the examples of how over the years I've seen where there might have been weaknesses and I improved on those. So I'm really happy with what we have now, and we get very satisfied customers. Pretty much 95 or 98% of our residents end up passing in our homes using hospice, which we have a great relationship with. And so it's for those appropriate candidates who really see the need for our service, it's a way to, like I said, finish their months or years in a peaceful setting.
Absolutely. And on a normal day basis versus kind of the world we're living in, where, the new normal, you kind of brought up Tidewell, which I think is a good point. So third party vendors such as home health providers, mobile physicians, mobile x-ray, those type of services, do they come into the home? Again, we're in a little bit different of a situation with COVID-19, but kind of explain that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's already a whole host of services that will come to the home. And yes, we have developed relationships with, like you said, mobile physicians, with Tidewell, who know us well, and that's the hospice company that serves both Sarasota and Bradenton. So we're experienced with that sort of thing, and when hospice is appropriate. And it's not always end of life. Maybe the resident is having a weak period in their life, and they need that extra assistance, the extra equipment that hospice can provide.
Right.
This is something that's covered under Medicare, so we always encourage families to take advantage of it. And that's the advantage of working with us is, we have great relationship with Tidewell. We know when it's appropriate. Even things like a urinary tract infection, UTI, that can be very, very harmful, and if it's not caught early. And if you have the same staff coming every day, they'll recognize those behaviors that are different in the resident, which is typically what are the early signs of a UTI, urinary tract infection. And if it's caught early, then it's just simple antibiotics. And if it's not, then the resident has to go to the hospital and could possibly pass away from it through sepsis. So those are examples of things that we can do well because we have constant eyes on the residents, and there's the same staff, the same nurses that are coming in day after day and that can follow the progression of the resident. We also have, and I should mention, we also have a registered nurse that comes in on a periodic basis to evaluate and to follow the health progression of all the residents. And she really works with our on-site traveling doctor, who together they follow to make sure that the residents are well cared for, and that any changes in medications or so on are done in a quick and intelligent manner.
That's great. That's, like you said, that's what you do well. You're able to keep such great eyes on your residents and deliver the care that they need. And I think you guys do an amazing job. I'm a huge fan of the care you provide at both locations. Let's share, are you accepting residents at the moment?
Actually, yes, we are. We are being more careful in the screening process. We want to know more history about where the resident was. But yes, we are. The other location at Bradenton is full, but we do have two spots that I mentioned earlier on at the location in Sarasota, which is the house that's behind you. They can reach me directly, and I don't know, are you going to show the website so that they can see that quickly?
Yep, I certainly will. Here, let me just pull it up real quick.
It's always better to see the visual than instead of having to remember the numbers.
That's right. So I will pull up your website here, and so this is liliespromisehomes.com.
And also, you can use liliespromise.com. I have both domains.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I think last time we talked, I just went to Lily's Promise, so both domains. So liliespromise.com, and you can see everything here from pictures in the homes, and the two locations, of course, the addresses. And then Patrick, best number to reach you at is at the 941-926-LILY.
That's right. So 941-926-5459, 941-926-5459, and 5459 spells Lily, Lily.
Perfect. And then also, and I'll put all the information in the post, the website, your email, the phone number. But I highly encourage people, as they're even especially going through right now, just, I think more than ever, we are realizing we need to pre-plan and have a plan in place. So even if people are just interested in what it's like and talking to you more, I encourage you to reach out to Patrick, because he does a phenomenal job with both locations.
I'd be happy to talk to anyone, and like I said, I've been at it a while, since 2009. I've been in the industry, and we've seen a lot of different cases with Alzheimer's, and so we can talk through the situation and determine if it's an appropriate fit for those families who don't see the level of care that they are striving to get for their loved ones. Be happy to discuss it further.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Again, this is Patrick, and he is the owner of Lily's Promise. And thanks everybody for tuning in, and we hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.
And it was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for reaching out and for everything you do. I've really noticed the difference in Senior Blue Book since you started. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you so much, Patrick. I really do appreciate that. All right.
Thanks, Brittany.
It was great seeing you. I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.